Okay. Up and away. Here we go. So we got a really fun one today. We're going to talk about a lot. Our Mishnah. So our Mishnah in Berachot, back on 54a. In our Mishnah, we're going to start this new section now. And the very first thing we're talking about to make a bracha on is something that the Mishnah is going to call zikin. Now that's not a word that sounds like very familiar to us, right? Like we have this concept like nizikin. Like nizikin is damage, right? But like zikin, that's not a familiar word. I mean, we don't hear that. It hasn't come up a lot. We don't really know what zikin is. So first thing we got to figure out what zikin is. And then it's going to open up a whole new discussion of what's a star. And then it's going to open up a whole new discussion of like, what does Hashem do with the constellations and the stars? And there's certain stars that go nova, certain stars that go supernova, there's comets, there's meteor showers. So they say like in entertainment, they say timing's everything. We may have just missed the great timing for this class, but every late July, early August to mid-August, there's a thing called the Perseid meteor shower. I'm giving away a little hint of Zikin. There's a Perseid meteor shower, and this year it was peaking around August 11th to 12th. It goes into late August. I don't know if it's still happening or we kind of missed it, but early morning, they say about an hour before like sunrise. I don't know if that's an hour before Alos HaShachar or the exact timing, but from like midnight on, from Chatzos on, you see like stars, little stars coming and little meteors coming and burning up, in the atmosphere, and it's really interesting to watch. We can make a bracha on it, as we're going to see. And the bracha it gives us in our Mishnah is shekot. So Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, the King of the universe. And the blessing is shekocho, that His power, ugavuraso, and His strength, malei olam, fills the world. So we're going to talk about that. So that, how is this all showing the strength and power of Hashem? And then it's going to be interesting when we get deeper and deeper in the halakha. We're going to see there's kind of two brachas that you can kind of make on all these things. And the other bracha is osa maisa breshis, that Hashem is really osa, which is interesting, really making. And there's a really deep idea that really, the universe, the earth, everything's really being made anew every day. Every moment, actually, Hashem's keeping it in existence. And osa maisa breshis, He's making the action of the Bereshis, means the action of creation. So we're going to get really deep. We're going to dive in this. We got some really interesting stuff to look at. So let's take a look here. So the very first question, we're going to be in the Gemara Bavli today. Bezrat Hashem, we're going to be jumping back and forth a lot. We're going to see what the Yerushalmi says, what the Bavli says, and it's very interesting, like the difference of like how they're describing everything. But the very first question the Gemara is going to ask, of course, is my zikin. What are these zikin? This is not a normal word.
It's just Bavli?
This is in the Bavli. So we're in the Bavli right now. So that's the first big question the Gemara is going to ask. My zikin. What are these things? What are these zikin? Now Shmuel, right? So the answer is going to be Amar Shmuel. Here, let me write it over here. So Amar Shmuel, that's the question. Amar Shmuel, and then we're going to get into some really interesting things. Amar Shmuel, let me get him up there, and he's going to say, it's a kochav, it's a star, it's a kokva, so that's the Aramaic for kochav, for star, so it's a kokva dishavit. So everyone got it? That's it. Kochav Deshavit. We're done. We know exactly what it is. Does everyone know what it is? Okay, so we're going to have to figure out what that means. A Kokva Deshavit. We're going to go to some Meforshim and see what that means. Any guesses?
It's a star.
Right, so this is Aramaic, but it looks a lot like the word in Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew, Kochav, right? Kochav, star. And what word does this look like?
Shevet.
Right, a shevet. It looks like the word for scepter. Right, it looks like the word we have in Lashon HaKodesh for scepter. So this is like a shevet. It's like that. Shevet, something like that. Shevet.
A star with a straight line back.
So it's something that looks like a scepter, maybe, and this looks like the Lashon HaKodesh work of Kochav. And then we're going to start a major discussion of what is a star to begin with? What is this? Like, our sun's a star. What are stars? So what's the difference between a star and a planet? What are stars? How many stars are there? It says that we're going to look at Tehillim. We're going to look at some very interesting things in Tehillim about stars, and we say it every day, and we don't think a lot about it. We say it every day in Tehillim, some things about stars, and really deep things about stars, and we don't think about it. Yeah, all the stars have names. That's a huge concept. Are stars alive? Why is there this weird Goyish, magical minhagim of wishing on stars? What's that going to do? Like wishing on a falling star. Any Disney movie, the princess is wishing on a star. All right, so we get into all that nonsense, but really we're here to make brachas on stars. Hashem created the stars, and we're going to see that Hashem controls the stars. Stars can sometimes turn on and off. We're talking about that. Stars can move. So there used to be this idea in the ancient world that stars were fixed, and we're going to see that everything's really moving. Like, we live in a very, very dynamic universe where everything's alive, even rocks, everything's alive, everything's moving, and we don't really live in this static world. So it's interesting. So I think in Greek, in ancient Greek, I think the word static, like not moving, like fixed, means death. Because a person, if you think about it, like when the neshama leaves the person's goof, when the soul leaves the body, person's dead, right? What's death? The body doesn't move anymore. But we're going to see the inner meaning that really no. Even though the goof may be finite, the neshama is made of, more elevated things, more ruchnius things, spiritual creation, and so are the stars. And the stars are not just like what some people imagine of like lifeless, like balls of rock or fiery gas. We're going to see that there's a lot more to planets and stars. All right, so that's a little bit the introduction, the hype. All right, so let's go in here and let's see what he's saying. So we're going to look at some other places to get a definition. First place, as we always go, we're going to look up Rashi. We're going to see what the Rashi is on this. The Rashi here is, if you look, it's Kokva Dishavit. I don't know if people have their Gemaras. I'll write the Rashi all up on the board. But for the next few days, we're back in the Gemara for a while, so we're going to need Gemara. But you probably don't need today, because I'm going to write everything up here. So we have a Rashi here, and I'll put it all up here, and then we'll figure out what it means. So the Rashi, the Divrei Hamaskil, is Kokva, right? It's Kokva Dishavit. And then Rashi's going to tell us what that means. That's good. Dishavi. And that's the Divrei Maskil. So what Rashi says is this. Rashi says, a kochav, very interesting, he says a kochav, it's a star, hayored, kind of like falling or going down. It's something that's falling or going down. It's yared. It's hayored, kind of shooting down, falling down. Techates, like an arrow. Right, shooting down or falling like an arrow, birakia, and that is a deep topic that I don't know if we're going to be able to fully get the whole idea of rikia today, but we can maybe do that another day when we start talking about how there's 7 rikiyas, what rikia means. Yeah.
Sir, what page are you reading right now?
Okay, so this is on it's 58b4.
Thank you.
58 here, so it's Brachos.
Today's Tuesday.
Brachos 58b4, if anyone wants to look it up. Okay, and then, let's see, but I'm going to try to put it all up here so everyone can see it. And then, so then he's saying it's going in the Rikia, and it's going from a place to a place. He's saying it's mimakom, from a place. What does that mean? From a place to a place. It's going from one place to another place. Very mysterious Rashi here. The guy knew a lot for a simple wine grower in France. And the Orach, and it's long, but it has length. It has length to it. It has a dimension to it. It's Orach, Aroch, and then he says Keshavet. Here's our word, like a scepter. So that's why it's called that, because it's long like a scepter. Shehu. And we'll break all this down. Shehu, Yoreh, and it's like falling. It's falling. Now it's interesting because Yoreh, I believe, I may be going a little bit on the fence here. I think it also has the language of like Rodeb, like being dominant, ruling. And if you think about a scepter is the power of the king. So it's something long, but it's also power, dominion, and rulership. And we're going to see the Mazalos and the stars have a great effect on the world, which is very interesting. So there's a double meaning there in some ways. So then Venirah, and it appears, Venirah, and I will go back through and we'll do a good definition. Venirah Kamo, and it appears like Venirah Kamo Ship Toseach Rakia. Now that is a mind-blowing explanation there from Rashi, and that is going to need a little bit of work to start to understand concepts like that. And then, of course, the big question, on the second day of creation, Hashem created the Rakia, and what is a Rakia? So that's a $1 million question. That's a deep topic. I don't know if I'm going to fully be able to go into all that today, but we'll touch on a little bit. Now, if you want to cheat, if you want to know the answers, if you can't take it, you got to know the answers. You need to know. So you can go to Rambam Yesodei Torah. Now, this Hashem, I think we may do this tomorrow, but you go to Rambam Yesodei Torah. It's chapter 3 in Yesodei Torah. Yesodei Torah, I believe, is in the first book of Mada. So if you look in the Mishnah Torah, it's in the very first book, and we'll try to go through this, and maybe I'll try to make some copies of all this. But here he's going to go through what he's calling the Galgalim, and he's going to talk all about the Rekiim, the different Rekiim. And there's 7 Rekiim, and it's very deep, and we're going to get deep enough as it is with Zohar and science and physics and astronomy and all kinds of deep stuff. So we can't do everything today, but we're going to do a lot. All right, so let's go through this Rashi. So Rashi's saying it's a Kokva Deshavi. So what does that mean? So he's going to say it's a star. So Kokva means star, and it's some kind of star that's descending. It's like coming down. It's falling down. It's shooting down. So let's call it. Let's just call it shooting down. Right, shooting down like an arrow. Like an arrow. So if we just think about the description for a second, I don't know how much everyone's done archery, but like you shoot an arrow and then there's a point, like the arrow goes in the arc or the arrow goes, but then it starts coming down. Especially if archers, you're shooting at enemies like far away, they shoot it high up in the sky, and then the arrows start coming down. So if we think about what the arrow looks like, it's long and it starts shooting down out of the sky, right? And so that's what he's describing here. Something long is shooting down out of the sky, and it sounds a lot like our meteor showers. So these Perseid meteor showers, unfortunately, if we had great timing, we would have done this 3 weeks ago or whatever, and then we could have gone out every morning and made our brachas on the Perseid meteor showers. And then we're going to have to look into the idea. And these are very special too, because these brachas now that we're working on, it seems like these brachas don't have that limitation of what we've been talking about, parakim, of every 30 days. And it seems like you can at least make a bracha once a day on all these phenomena. And then we're going to see in the Gemara, it's very interesting, a storm. And we saw it a little bit yesterday, which was really cool. Like Hashem's really he's pulling out all the works to show us these things. But like you can have a storm, and then the storm, the clouds kind of scatter, and the sun comes out again, and then another storm starts. So you can really make a bracha on each storm, on the thunder and lightning.
Because the yom doesn't go away; it's always there. That's what you said.
Right, right. Mediterranean Sea, like we want to make a bracha on the Mediterranean Sea, you got to wait 30 days because it's still there. But like each storm's kind of different, and then it's going to get into a question of something else which is very interesting. Each lightning bolt and each lightning bolt, are they different? Could you make a bracha on each one of the different lightning bolts and each rolls of thunder? When you hear the thunder, because so can it even go to that extent that each lightning, each thunder, you can make a bracha on? So all these questions. Okay, but we're going to start here, Zeking. So then in the Rakia. Okay, the Rakia is $1 million question of what the Rakia is. For our purposes right today, let's just call this like the nighttime sky or we can use the word celestial sphere. Let's just call it the celestial sphere like the scientists do right now. So let's call it the celestial sphere. But basically meaning that when you look up into the nighttime sky, we can kind of visualize like it's a sphere all around us, and all the stars in the constellations, which we'll see soon, like they're in a certain point in the celestial sphere. And then the whole idea of the mazalos, or the zodiac, is that where the sun's path went during that day, at night, like at a certain point in the sky during each month, there's going to be a mazel or a zodiac constellation that's in that month, that's in a certain portion of the sky. And then for 12 months, it's like this celestial sphere is like rotating around us, and then each new month has a certain mazel. So we're in the month of Av. Does anybody know what the mazel is for the month of Av? Anybody know? Av. Which mazel or zodiac? See, what are they teaching kids today in grade school? You know what I'm thinking? All right, so it's actually, so the mazel for the month of Av, if I got it right, is the Aryeh, is the lion, or Leo. And so in the Greco-Roman system, they call it Leo. Now, Av is such a crazy month, because we were talking about before, like Av right now, at least the beginning of Av, is kind of one of Asav's months. It's like this month is going over to Asav, and then by Tu B'Av, as we talked about, we learned about, like Tu B'Av, it starts to come back to us, right? The month starts to come back to us. So the mazel right now is the lion. Who's the lion? You know, Yehuda. You know, the tribe of Yehuda is symbolized by the lion. You know, Yehuda's descendant, David HaMelech, King David, and then David HaMelech's descendant, Mashiach. And then we have this idea from Eicha Rabbah that Mashiach is going to be born when? During the month of Av, during the month of the mazel of the Aryeh, of the lion. It's Mashiach's month, right? Av's Mashiach's month, and it's our Av, it's our Avinu Shebashamayim. It's the month of our Father, it's Hashem. You know, He's our Avinu Shebashamayim, He's our Father in heaven. And really, Av should be like the last month that Esav should have control over. But right now, unfortunately, Esav has a little bit of control over it, but it's really a month that's going to be very powerful for us. Now, then we're going to head into the next month. Anybody know Elul? What's the mazel for Elul? Anybody know?
Elul is Libra, is scales.
So that's Tishrei.
That's Tishrei.
So Tishrei is the Moznayim, or Libra, right? It's the scale. So the scale is the justice. So we can think about it like Rosh Hashanah, the din, the judgment. But Elul is an amazing month. So we're about to head into Elul. Elul is the Basula, the mazel of the Basula, or Virgo, right, in the Greco-Roman system. So she's the maiden. She's pure, the pure, innocent maiden. And now everything cools off. So all the heat of the lion, all the heat of the burning in the temple cools off, and everything's cooling off now as we start to head into Elul. And now we have the balance of the heat, the hot and the cold, and it's a month of renewal. It's a month where we can all become innocent again, like the innocent maiden, and the month of Elul is like a restart. So we're going to talk about it, but these mazals have a certain power. There's a certain spiritual energy in the world in each month, and they have a great effect. These mazals have a great effect on the world, and we can tap into that power, that spiritual power, every month. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's say, we see these stars, and they're shooting like arrows in the celestial sphere, in the Rakia, and they're moving from place to place. So they're going from makom, they're going from place to place. So if anyone's ever seen one of these meteor showers, they're really, really incredible to watch. But you see these little lights, and they kind of have like streaky tails, and they're just falling. And so when we witness one of these meteor showers, and it's the Bracha of Re'iyah, like we're talking about, it's a Bracha of vision. So just like when we saw the place where the miracle happened, if we see these like heavenly phenomena, if we see these meteor showers, these falling stars, then we can make the Bracha, Shekocho Gevuraso Malei Olam, according to our Mishnah, and then we'll go into the Halakha, you know. And then it says Va'aruk. So then Rashi's saying they're kind of long. They're long like a scepter. So, you know, think of a king's scepter, right? The scepter, the king has like a golden scepter. And I'll tell you a really interesting Midrash on all this. So I believe that there's this golden scepter, or at least maybe made out of sapphire, and it has like all kinds of precious gems, I think, on it. There's various descriptions. It's very interesting. It has the name of the first letter of each of the 10 plagues. I believe there's certain names of Hashem on this scepter, and it's the ultimate royal scepter. I believe this scepter was first given to Adam Arishon. This scepter then got passed down to Abraham, to Yitzhak, to Yaakov. Yaakov brings it down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, where Yosef is the ruler. And then eventually, I think then as we got into slavery, the scepter kind of got like Paro kind of like, I'll take that. I'm the king of the big empire of the world, the Egyptian empire. And then I think what happened is, when, it's very interesting. So Paro, the Pharaoh, had 3 advisors. He had Bilam, the evil Bilam Harasha, the sorcerer, and then he had Yisro, right? So Yisro, who said good things about the Jewish people, and then the third advisor, Job, who we'll probably talk about soon a little later. So he was kind of like neutral. He was kind of in the middle. He's the moderate. Sometimes everyone thinks it's really good to be the moderate. Sometimes, when it's good and evil, it's not always good to be the moderate. You got to take a side, good or evil. So Bilam went to the evil side and throw all the Jewish babies in the Nile. Yisro was like, don't mess with the Jewish people. Hashem loves them. Hashem punishes people severely who mess with Jewish people. And Eov didn't say anything. And then when it's Eov's turn, when the Satan was accusing Eov, then Hashem didn't say anything. So sometimes it's not always good to be parv when it comes to evil.
That summarizes Eov.
Eov, yeah. So then Yisro, when Yisro left, so when Yisro said, don't mess with the Jewish people, he saw in the Pharaoh's eyes that the Pharaoh was very much going to mess with the Jewish people. And he had to get out of there, and I think he took the scepter. So he took the scepter, it's very interesting, and he buried it in his garden, the Midrash says. He buried it in his garden behind the house. Now this is where it's so fascinating. The whole King Arthur legend of the sword and the stone, where like only the true King of England could pull the sword out of the stone. So in the myth, so Arthur, was the son of Uther, Pendragon, and no one else could pull the sword out. And then so he was adopted by Sir Kay, and they were doing a big jousting tournament, and they needed a sword, so Arthur just ran, and he's like, here, this sword's lying around the rock, I'll just pull this sword out. And he comes back with the sword, right? The sword. And by the way, I think the sword was not Excalibur. I know we're getting way into Arthur and myth right now, but the sword was not Excalibur. That was a different sword, but whatever. So then everyone's like, how do you have that sword? You stole it, and you're not the king, And then they go back, and then he pulls it out again, but no one else could pull it out. Same thing with this scepter, which is very fascinating. So Yisro, the Midrash says, put it into the ground. No one else could remove the scepter. This was the scepter of Malchus. This was the scepter of rulership of the world, and no one else could pull it out. And Moshe pulled it out. So Moshe's staff is this scepter. And then, this is the scepter he held out, with the Kriyas Yamsuf for the parting of the Red Sea. This is the scepter that he gave to his brother Aaron to strike the Nile for the first plague and strike the dirt, I think, for the plague of the lice. And this is the scepter that then made its way to David HaMelech, right? And then, the royal line of King David and all his descendants, all those kings of Yehuda, Judah, they all had the scepter. And then at some point, that scepter is going to be returned to Mashiach ben David, like the true scepter of kingship in the world. Very interesting. And then I think at some point it's going to be returned Kiviyachol to Hashem, because Hashem was the first. Hashem's never stopped ruling. He's the Melech Haolam, but he was the first of the great kings, and he's going to be the last of the great kings. And Mashiach really, the job of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David is to turn the Malchus back to its true king, to Hashem. All right, so a lot about the scepter, so it's interesting. So it's like a star, and it's like the scepter, but it's got also a deeper meaning of these things have power and rulership, and these stars, these mazalos, these are not, like scientists look at these things, they're just distant balls of light, very, very far away from the earth. But the Torah looks at stars very, very differently. And we'll talk more about how the Torah looks at stars, and these stars have great effect on the earth, and we'll see from our Gemara, we'll see how far we get today, but when Hashem will remove stars from a constellation, that brought on the Mabul, that brought on the flood. So these stars, it's very important the effect that they're having on the earth, and then if Hashem were to change them or remove them. And we'll talk about what does that mean, removing them or placing them. What does that mean? And it had great effect on the earth, right? So these things are very important. So he says he's saying they're long. Rashi is saying they're long, and like they're descending. It's like it is like descending. It's going down. Okay, around the room there. It's descending, and then if they appear near a kamo. They appear like. This is very interesting. So this is really crazy. They appear like it's like a doorway or an opening into like the heavens, in the Rakia, in the universe. So I don't know. So that's a very deep one. I'm not sure if I can fully explain that one, but the Gemara talks about it. We can look into it. Any questions so far where we're at? We're just overwhelmed right now by the stars. Okay, let me take a picture of this. Then we're gonna go to Rambam and we're gonna go to the Mishnah Brewer. And it's interesting. Rambam is gonna say something a little different. Like Zeking can also be this other thing. And then Mishnah Brewer is gonna give us an interesting description of what's going on. Let me take a picture of this. Does everybody need a couple more minutes to write? Where's everybody at? Can I erase this soon or? And I pause this. Okay. So we got a great question coming on.
So my question is that, so with your Kaplan of Hunter,
yeah.
So the book we're reading now, I don't recall the name of it.
Okay.
And it's I think it's Schneur Zalman. It goes way back.
Okay.
The same verbiage you're using here, and the same thing in Art Scroll on 58b4.
Yeah.
It's particularly in Note 55.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a look at
that
too.
language.
Yeah, we're going to take a look.
It's identical.
Yeah.
To like his anpin, the kernels, the line crossing the circle.
Yeah.
Transecting it and opening, and then there's a large hole, and through that this Klekes comes to the world, and either you can direct it towards good, the way you're supposed to, or you can be a bad boy too.
Yeah.
And you can direct that energy can go to the Goyim as well.
Right.
So if you're it really affects me because he said that good measure that's coming to you when you're doing the good things. He says if you're kind of going off the track a little bit,
yeah,
you're not behaving. He said that energy does not dissipate or attenuate; it goes to them.
Yeah,
they get stronger.
Yeah.
So it's like a closed system.
Yeah, if you guys want some really scary muster before
Elul,
I can give you some really scary muster before Elul. So you're talking about Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, right? And his
right. So this is the Chabad stuff he's teaching us now.
Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. Oh, you're learning from Rabbi Kaplan here.
Shmuel Kaplan.
Oh, okay.
He's
okay. Oh yeah. Interesting. Okay.
He's got it all in his mind. I mean, he knows everything
Okay.
about this.
Okay.
And I don't have any way of understanding.
Okay. So there's two topics. I'm not sure if we're going to get them today, because we have a lot to get through. Very fascinating time. I'm going to get back to exactly what you asked in one second. But there's very fascinating thing to look at, and that's the scientific theory of the Big Bang versus what the Arizal, what Rabbi Yitzhak Luria in his Sefer Eitz Hayim, in his book, like the Tree of Life, how he describes like the universe being created through a process that he calls the Simsum, and the Zav, the line. Okay, so the Kav. So these are very deep concepts. I did have some plans in the back of my mind that we can talk about these two comparisons, but we got a lot to get to today. Now, what you're saying, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you some very, very scary musar, right? I'll give you one aspect of it. So there's a minhag that the Shulchan Aruch says is a chova to do, right? Chova to do. That when, the Tanya, so the Tanya speaks a lot about some of these concepts. The Baal Tanya Rabbi, or I think it's Rabbi Schneur Zalman, Alaidi, right? So the Tanya speaks a lot about this. And it says for instance, so it says Mayim Acharoni, when we have a big Suda, let's say we have a Suda on Shabbos, there's a minhag to Mayim Acharonim. Now it says in the Gemara, that's because like we used to use the salt, from the Dead Sea region, the Sodomite salt was very, very strong. It was dangerous. So some people will say that like, oh, well, we don't use Sodomite salts. You don't really need to do. I don't get this. I don't get where people are so light on Mayim Acharonim. What the Shulchan Aruch actually says, what Rabbi Yosef Karo actually says, it says it's a chova to do the Mayim Acharonim, to do the washing, little washing, chova, it's an obligation, like it's a chiyuv, you gotta do it. And the Zohar says very scary stuff about it. So what it says is, there's kedusha, it's not just, especially when, let's say a Shabbos meal, it's not just a meal, it's not just a meal. We're speaking Torah at the table. We're eating the meal because it's I don't know if it's a mitzvah or a minhag. I forgot what level it is. I think it's attached to the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbos. There's the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbos to have joy, pleasure, delight in Shabbos. And one of the ways we do it is through these meals. So the meal itself can draw down an incredible amount of kedusha, like holy spiritual energy, the good energy, the light side of the force. Now, this is where it gets really scary. If we don't have kavana during a bracha, right? If we're not really concentrating, we're kind of going through the motions of the bracha, or let's say we don't do this mayim acharonim, all that kedusha, all that holy energy can go to what it's called like the sitra achra, the other side, the klipos, the forces blocking the spiritual light. Now we can get it back. The good thing is we can get it back. It's not permanently lost. But and that's the problem, and that's what makes us in this gullus. Like that's what there's no way. Like how could it be possible if the other nations could subjugate us, could control us, could rule over us? It's impossible, right? It's impossible. We're attached to Hashem. We're attached as one infinite, all-powerful being, unique. There's no other power. No one can touch us. How do they? How do we ever lose in a war? How do we lose in a battle? How is it possible when October the 7th that over 1,000 Jewish people were killed and all these captives, and they're still there? How do we still have Jewish captives? And it's scary. It's a really scary concept. But like Chas v'Shalom, when we're not doing mitzvos, when we're doing aveiros, Jewish people are doing aveiros, and Chas v'Shalom, when we're not really doing mitzvahs with like real joy and kavana, sometimes all that good holy energy, that kedusha, can go over to the other nations, to the other sides, and then people can have power over us. But but B'ezras Hashem, we'll see soon. When we all do teshuvah, when the Jewish people wake up, we talk about like waking up this sleeping giant. Rav Noach Weinberg all the time will talk about the sleeping giant, and they say the real sleeping giant is the Jewish people. And when the Jewish people wake up, the world is going to, not be able to stop, like bringing the knowledge of Hashem into the world, bringing the revelation of Hashem into the world. But the world doesn't understand either. It's like it's going to bring the blessing back in the world. It's going to make the world back into the Garden of Eden. It's going to do incredible things for the world. But it's like, it's up to us. Like it's all in our control. It's like how much we're doing, or Chas v'Shalom. When we don't, like you're saying, when we don't, it's really scary because we can empower, the other nations and bad people, unfortunately, sometimes.
But your reply, the great thing you're saying is that your reply is entirely concordant with exactly what he was saying about this.
Yeah.
About the klipa and husk.
Yeah.
And to peel this and it is.
Yeah. Right, so we're going to go. I don't want to go too.
It's scary knowledge.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far into that right now because I want to say, let me get up the next part on the board. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to start writing the next part, and then we'll talk about Rambam and the Mishnah Brewer. Yeah, word for a brief introduction. So finally today, the amazing Sefer, the Mishnah Brewer. Now the Mishnah Brewer is on Orach Chaim. So if you remember, that's the first section of the Torah called like the Path of Life. And then Rabbi Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch, he adopts the same system, the same number, the Simmons, the same way he's breaking up the four things. So the Mishnah Brewer is written by the Chofetz Chaim, and it's going to be his commentary on the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. So what the Kofetz Chaim is going to do is here. So we were learning before. We were learning Reish Yud Ches on making the bracha and seeing a place where the miracle is. Now we're in this section. We're in Reish Kaf Zion, right? So we're in 227, and this is dealing with the mitzvah of our Mishnah now. Al Hazikim, the Ruach, so he's going to say what it means. So here's the Shulchan Aruch, and I don't want to totally spoil. We're going to go back. We're going to do this the way we did it before. So we'll see the Torah first, we'll see the Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll see the Mishnah Brewer. We're just going to jump down here today into the Mishnah Brewer. So the Mishnah Brewer is actually, here's the Kofetz Chaim's commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, right? And then we have some other great, Mefarshim. We have like the Short Sion. We have the Berachot. This also may have been the Kofetz Chaim. I had to look that up again. I think this also may have been another commentary, and then the Berachot. So this is great commentary. Now, what's so amazing about the Mishnah Brewer is then the Mishnah Brewer takes us into the 20th century, right? So we began our journey so far, thousands of years ago, in the days of Rebbe Yehuda Hanasi, the days of the Roman Empire, right, where they put the Tanaim put together the Mishnayos, the Mishnahs, and then the Amoraim. So now we got a more modern posek, the Kofetz Chaim, and he's writing now in the 20th century. So now he's going to comment on all the Acharonim, that have come before him, and we're going to get a good modern view of the halakha now. Okay, but today what we're going to concern ourselves with is he's going to define hayore kechetz, like it's descending like an arrow. Like, what does that mean? Okay, so let me put this up on the board here. So we have the Rambam, and now we're going to put up the Mishnah Brewer. So this is the Mishnah Brewer, and Mishnah. Oh, let me see, Mishnah Brura, and it means like a clarity, like clarifying the Mishnah, which is really interesting if you think about like our whole journey. Like we take this journey from the Mishnah, right, and now we're getting a clarity. Now we're getting a clarity of the Mishnah. So it's really beautiful. So the Mishnah Brewer here, we're in this section. We're in Reish Kaf Zion, so 227. And then what we're learning here is we're learning the Birkas. So this is the section, Birkas Hazikim, like exactly what we are trying to learn about, right? What are these Zikim? And let me just learn a little bit while we're here. So Zikim. Now you notice I think in Aramaic it's with the nun, so it's Zikim. So, or I don't know, I think that's more Aramaic. But here it's more Lashon HaKodesh, so it's Zikim with the mem, but it's talking about the same thing, the same word. And then once again, he's going to tell us, he's going to say, and this is the Shulchan Aruch, he's like, Uvo, and what's coming is Gimel Se'ifin. So this is the Siman. The Siman is, 227, and the Sifs are like what we could call also halakha. The Sifs each Sif is a halakha. And it's a further division of the Siman. That's just like the system like the Torah put together. Okay, so then we're going to go down to this one. We're going to go down, and this is actually, it's Aleph. If you look it up in the Mishnah Brewer, and it's on this, here, let me write this in a different color so it stands out. So it's where he's going to give us, the Mishnah Brewer is going to give us a definition of this. Hayore kehetz. Like it's descending. It's descending like an arrow. What does that mean? Hayore kehetz. Like an arrow. Descending like an arrow. And then the Mishnah Brewer, the Kofetz Chaim, he's going to teach us about what that means. Okay, so that's the Divrei Hamaskil. And then, let's see what he says. And I'll leave some room so we can translate it. So he says, the Yesh Omrim. So anybody remember what's a Yesh Omrim? Anybody remember?
Some people say.
Some people say, good. So that's the definition. But what it is it's a different opinion. So there's different Rebbeim, there's different, whatever group we're dealing with. It could be the Tanaim, it could be the Amoraim. Sometimes it could even be like, in the Rishonim. But there's those who say, and they're going to have like a different opinion. So what are the Yesh Omrim? What are they going to say? They're going to say Shehu Shehu Kochav, it's a star, Sheyesh Lo, right? Sheyesh Lo, that there is to it a Zanav. So let me ask you a question. We saw Rashi, right? I kind of gave you the answer. So who's the Mishnah Brewer? Who's the Yesh Omrim? Who says it has a tail? This guy, Rambam. So what the Mishnah Brewer is teaching is saying that Rambam had a different opinion. Rambam didn't say it was like a meteor shower. He didn't say the Ezekiel were like a meteor shower. He says it's a comet. Comet's a whole different thing going on. That's a star in outer space that has a tail coming out of it. You know, we get more into the science of this, soon. Yeah. Okay.
Is it proper to say about Rambam, Yesh Omrim, somebody said?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
He's more than just a somebody.
He's very much more than just a somebody. Now it could be the Yesh Omrim is coming that, once again, what's the tricky part of learning Rambam? What's the tricky part of Rambam? Rambam doesn't tell us sources. So we have to go back now. So when we go back into Rambam, when we're actually going to learn the Rambam through in this section, who's our friend that's going to help explain Rambam? We're going to go into the Kesef Mishnah. The Kesef Mishnah is Rabbi Yosef Karo. So we're going to try to see if the Kesef Mishnah will tell us where did Rambam get this idea from that's a comet. So you're right. It may not be specifically Rambam, but it may be Rambam and then whoever Rambam's quoting, and all those other people are Yesh Omrim. But as the structure of halakha, there is much a Yesh Omrim. Because Rashi, who's the Bashat, Rashi's who's the simple meaning, Rashi says a meteor shower. And a meteor shower and a comet, even though they look somewhat similar, are two very different things. But what it's telling us is that we may be able to make the bracha on both things. We may be able to make it on a meteor shower and a comet, which is interesting. So it's not talking about two separate things. It's talking about the same thing. So he's saying it has a tail, and it's a shevet shel ora. It's like a scepter that has length. It's a scepter of length, right? Shel ora, or no, I'm sorry, it may be light. I think he may be saying it's a scepter of light. Oh, that's interesting. He's saying it's a scepter of light. That's pretty good. And then he's saying ushnehem, and both of them ushnehem. Let's see what he says here. Ushnehem hetiku, and they're both going to echo. They're both going to kind of repeat. This is a good word. We're going to see this word a lot. This is good to know this word, just in case you guys don't know it. Hetiku, they echo. It means like they're saying the same thing. We see this we'll see a lot in halakha, like they echo, and who do they echo? They echo these guys. We haven't learned a lot about them yet. We're going to start hopefully learning more and more of them definitely here. The Acharonim, the people that come after, the Rebbeim that come after the Rishonim. We haven't dealt a lot with them yet. And they echo what the Acharonim are saying, Li Dina, to figure out what the halakha actually is. Okay. Then, a couple of times going to go on, and he's going to say, V'im, but if, V'im also, but if it, also, if it is a kochav atzmo, but if it's a star itself, I'm trying to leave enough room to, if it's a kochav atzmo, very interesting, if the star itself, if it's a star, atzmo, then sheyesh lo, there is to it a shevet, a scepter, right, a scepter, ro, eku. I'm going to give you guys, we're going to take a break soon. I'll give everyone time to write everything down. But eku od, there is to see further pam v'layla acheres. Like you see it on a different night. Awesome. So you may be able to see the comet on more than one night, which is interesting. And we'll talk about that, what that means. Pam v'layla acheres. You can see it still on another night, just not just even on one night, because the comets remain in the sky for a while. They don't pass right over us right away. Okay, and then that's an issue. Then what's the issue there? Then can we make a bracha the second night? If we see it the first night, and we have a halakhic question, can we make the bracha the next night? And then he says, then what the Chofetz Chaim is going to say here is, he's saying the ain, he's saying ain sarich. We don't need to. We don't. It seems like we may not. We can maybe only make the bracha, or need to make the bracha the first night. So then he says ain sarich. We don't need to with chazor to return, to repeat, chazor to return ulivarek, and then make a bracha on it, right? So maybe if the comet's up in our sky for a couple days, there becomes a question: can we make a bracha every night or not? Or should we? Or are we obligated to make a bracha every night? And then let's see, kol lo yivarek b'layla echad rak pam achas. Let's see, I'm kind of running out of room. Let me try to get a little more up with this. So let me see. So he says, look at kol, and then he says kol shehu. This is very interesting. He's going to comment back on, I think, Bracha. Kol shehu adayin. Let's see, adayin. Kol shehu adayin. That is still pesach. And here we go. Our magical prakim again. Pesach. Our 30 days. Does parakim apply to this? If we're looking at a comet, is it the limitation of the 30 days again, like we saw with the Yam HaGadol, with the Mediterranean Sea? Shaloshim Yom. Then it goes Li Re'iyah Rishona. Li Re'iyah Rishona. Okay, let's see. Rishona. Okay, then we'll go through and we will place in place. Okay. All right, let's go through this. Let's get a definition. Let me see where we are on time. All right, maybe, how about this? We'll take a break right now. We'll take a 5-10 minute break. And then we come back, we'll do the definition, and then we'll go to the next step. And then we'll start talking about. Okay, so now, let's take a look at what the Chofetz Chaim said. And then we're going to get into the discussion of what actually is a nova, and we want to kind of see if we can figure out, do we make a bracha on a nova? What is a nova, and what bracha will we make? Okay, so the Chofetz Chaim, he's going to comment, as we said, on the divrei hamaskil of hayoret, kachetz, like these stars. Rashi says the stars are kind of shooting down like arrows. That sounds like a meteor shower, so we make a bracha on a meteor shower. Rambam, so we don't know exactly at this point where Rambam's getting it from, but in his Kilkos brachas, in his halakha of brachos, now we saw it, we looked up, we learned the Rambam, and we learned the Kesef Mishnah on the bracha of seeing a place of the miracles. So but we haven't, we're just beginning our journey now on these brachas. So we haven't gone through we haven't seen the Rif yet, the Rif and the Ran, the Rif and Rabbeinu Yonah. We haven't seen the Rosh, and we have a lot to do. Right, but we're giving a little sneak peek right now. So the Mishnah Brewer, Chofetz Chaim, he's saying so Yesh Omrim. So what we know, one of the Yesh Omrim is Rambam, and it sounds like what Rambam's saying. So he's saying that it is shehu, that it is a kochav, it's a star, right? It's a star sheyesh lo, that basically that has a tail. So something that has a tail, a star that has a tail, that sounds like a comet. So now we're talking about a different phenomenon in the sky. So it sounds like a comet. So Zikin could be shooting stars, meteor showers, but it also could be, according to Rambam, it could be a comet. And then he says Vishevet, it's a scepter. It's going to look like a scepter. If you think of a comet, also looks like a scepter. It's very long. It looks like a scepter, but this is wild. It's a scepter of light. Shel Ora.
Yeah,
it's a scepter of light. And right, we think about what comet looks like. It's like the tail's illuminated. Right? Well, we'll get into the science of it all. We're going to get into the science of it all, yeah.
A chetz has an arc, like you said.
Yeah.
Whereas a comet is a straight line.
Yeah.
So
Right.
So
Now the meteor showers look like lines of light. I mean, when the meteor showers come in and they're burning up in the atmosphere, they do. If you ever, maybe we can bring in a video of a meteor shower, but they look like lines of light.
So it's not.
They both look like lines of light.
But
Yeah.
it's not, as an art, because Yorek implies the whole earth, the up and the down.
But the Yor is really the descending. It's really Yoreh, like like Yoreh.
I hate to bring it up, but
Yeah.
Yorek is, I think, an expression they use to determine whether a person is able to impregnate a woman if his dream is.
Okay, if they shoot straight like an arrow.
But
Okay. Well, all right, so let's stay away from that. Right? Let's stay away from making babies right now. That's a whole other topic.
Yes,
Okay.
but I'm just saying that
Okay, all right. But that's shooting like an arrow, right? Shooting like an arrow upward. Okay, I hear what you're saying. So that's upward. But like Yeh-Ray,
that's what makes a distinction between the two. Otherwise, they're both the same thing.
Okay. But raid, in Lashon and Kosher in Hebrew is generally like descending. Okay, but the meteor shower is descending. Right, so you're bringing up a good question, though. Because really the comet's not descending. When we're viewing it in the sky, the comet's kind of going across the sky. But that's the whole expression of mimakom limakom. So Rashi had an idea that they're going from place to place. But Rambam's going to say they're going to place in the sky. A comet just kind of goes across the sky. Okay, so let's just keep going. So let's keep going. But it's a scepter of light. The Chofetz Chaim is saying it's a scepter of light. And he's saying both of them. He's saying both of the opinions, right? Both the opinions they're echoed. Hitiku, they echo, and they echo the Acharonim, which we haven't learned a lot of yet. So hopefully now we're going to learn some more Acharonim. So the Acharonim, right, the group of Chazal, of rabbis that came after the Rishonim. So our Rishonim, just to clarify, right, so our Rishonim, right, our big guys, our big Rishonim. So we have the Rif, we have the Ran, the Rabbeinu Yonah, we have the Rosh, right? We have, of course, Rashi and the Bali Tosafos, like the Reishis of the Rishonim, like the beginning of the Rishonim. Right, then we have Rambam, and then now, who's the Acharonim? So we haven't really broken it down, but I believe when we start getting into the Torah, so we'll have to look it up. Is the Torah like the last of like the Rishonim? Because isn't the Rosh like a Rishon? He's the son of the Rosh. So we'll have to look up, is the Torah really a Rishon or an Acharon, or then the Acharon comes after the Torah? But when we get to Rabbi Yosef Karo, now in the 1600s, now we're very much in the period of Acharonim. So we haven't really broken it down that way yet. But like the Shulchan Aruch, and then definitely the Mishnah Brewer in the 20th century, these are all Acharonim. So I really do hope to have a class where we go through the whole history. We'll have Rashi, we'll have the Tosafos, all the Rishonim, we can even put the Acharonim on there, and get a list of when everyone lived, where they lived, and get a whole map of all the Rishonim, Acharonim. It's going to just clarify all these people. Okay, so the Chofetz Chaim, the Mishnah Brewer, is saying the Acharonim, they're echoing what the Acharonim said. Ladina, meaning in terms of what's the halakha. Because why are we doing this? As cool as it is, as interesting it is to learn all about the stars, we need to know practically if we see a miracle, if we see a meteor, that was the first part. If we see a meteor shower, what, can we make a bracha? Do we have to make a bracha? And what bracha to make? And now, according to Rambam, if we see a comet, do we make a bracha? Or what bracha do we make on a comet, or is it the same bracha? Okay, so we want to know what the halakha is. So ve'im also, so if it is, right, if it is a star, if it is the star itself, if the comet is the star itself, right, that there is that, right, basically it is like a scepter, right, it is a long scepter of light, as he's saying. It is a scepter, right? Then they see right? They see it owed Pam Belila. They see it another time, right? Another time, Belila Acheres, on another night. So now the Chofetz Chaim is bringing up an interesting concept here. All of these are the birkas re'iyah. They're all the brachas of vision. We see something, we make a bracha. But now there's a question of like, okay, we're looking through our telescope, or it's a comet. I don't know so much about all the comets. Like, I know, like, I think Halley's Comet, I think they first found it through the telescope. But I think there are certain comets that you don't need a telescope to see. I'm not 100% on that, I have to look it up. But so no matter how we look at the comet, we see the comet. But the comet, sometimes, I think it takes time to go through the sky. So they're there a couple nights at least. It takes time to go through a celestial sphere in our vision. So can we make a bracha the next night? Oh, I got up, I saw the comet, it's really neat. I have to also look up now, I'm kind of curious, when's the next time Halley's Comet's coming? So I see the comet, but now the next night I look at the comet again, can I make another bracha? So then Ein Sari. So then he's saying, the Comets guy in the Mishnah Brewer is saying, no, he's saying Ein Sari, we don't. He said, we don't, Ein, we don't, I think it's better there. We don't, Ein Sari, we don't need, Ein Sari, we don't need to return, so we don't need to make another bracha, basically. Ein lechazor ulivarei. We don't need to make another blessing, another bracha. Okay, so kol shehu adayin betov, because all of them, I think all of it, kol shehu, all of it is still betov, it's still in. Right, it's still in the 30 days. The 30 days of the first sight and the first seeing, right? The first sight. So now what he's doing is he's bringing in the idea of parakim that we see in the Mishnah for the first time. We see in the Mishnah in the terms of making the bracha on the Yom Gadol. I think it's Rebbe Yehuda. He brings it in on the Mishnah, but it's only on seeing the Yom Gadol. Every 30 days we can make a bracha on the Mediterranean Sea. But then the Tosafos, right there on the Mishnah, the Tosafos bring in this concept, which is very interesting, that maybe this concept of parakim, of making a blessing, making a bracha every 30 days, applies to not just the blessing on the Yom Gadol, not just the blessing on the Mediterranean Sea, but it may apply to other blessings. So we saw as we went through the Rishonim and the Halacha, we saw that yes, parakim does apply to, let's say, the Ma'abros Yamsuf, like the place where the Jewish people crossed the Red Sea. We have to wait another 30 days if we see that place to make the bracha again. And he's bringing in the concept now of, do we have to wait 30 days when we see the comet, or can we make another bracha on the comet the first night? So is it the concept of the 30 days, or is it not, or can you just make another bracha? Okay, so that's the Chofetz Chaim, that's the Mishnah Brewer. All right, now let's go on. We'll see how far we got with this today. I brought an article on an interesting thing that's going to happen soon.
What's Seifi?
What's that?
Seifi.
So a sif means there's going to be 3 halakas in this section. So this is
27.
So Reish Kaf Zion. So this is Siman 227. Right. So this is the numbering system started by the Torah, adopted by the Shulchan Aruch, and then adopted by the Mishnah Brewer, because the Mishnah Brewer is commenting on the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah.
And then Bracha.
So and then it's Birkas HaZikim, the blessing on these Zikim, which we're trying to figure out. Are they meteor showers? Are they comets? And then 3 sifim, 3 sifs, and that means 3 halakas. So we're on the first sif right now. We're on sif aleph. We're on the first halakha in this section. So we're in section 227, and we have 3 sifs, 3 halakas, and we're on sif aleph, the first sif. So we're the first sif. Okay. So I'm going to read this article. This is from, I think, PBS. Unfortunately, it's very small, so hopefully I can read it. So it looks a lot nicer online. Okay, so this was from, I think it's pbs.org. It published August 24th, 2024, so only what's that, like 3 days ago?
It's okay.
3 days ago, so this article was published 3 days ago. It was, if we need to know, it was published at 6:34 p.m. EDT. Okay, so now we know exactly when this article was published. Right, so here's what they say. So they say the stars aren't fixed and unchanging, unlike what many ancient people thought. Once in a while a star appears where there wasn't one before, and then it fades away in a matter of days or weeks. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit something about this news article right off the bat. That, folks, is a little bit of fake news, because as we see from our very Gemara that we're going to go through very soon, right? Our Gemara here in Brachos, the ancients, if the ancients are 2,000 years ago, the Tanaim and the Amoraim very much believe that not all stars are fixed, because we're about to learn in our Gemara that Hashem may be taking the stars from this constellation of Kima and moving it to the other constellation, right? And we're going to see all these things, moving stars appearing. So not everyone in the ancient world believed stars were fixed. Now the Greeks, I believe, did believe that stars were fixed, and we're going to talk about that as we get into the Rikiim and the celestial spheres, and the stars are fixed or unfixed. But that's a little bit of false news. Not everyone in the ancient world believed that stars were fixed and unchanging. All right, so the earliest record of such a guest star was named so by the ancient Chinese astronomers, is a star that suddenly appeared in skies around the world. This is very interesting. On July 4th, 1054. So Chinese astronomers saw this star suddenly appear in the sky. And that's going to be a lot later than I believe our Gemara here, Gemara Bavli. So okay, that wasn't the first nova star. That was and then the whole incident with the Mabul. I mean, that was a long time ago. That was the Hebrew calendar of, I think it was 1656. Right, so it says it quickly brightened, becoming visible even during the day for the next 23 days. Okay, so this was nova star. Nova means new. So it means a star that we don't see, and all of a sudden the star appears. Okay, so it says, astronomers in Japan, China, and the Middle East observed the event, as did the Anasazi in what is now New Mexico. So I guess this is an Indian tribe in New Mexico. In the second half of 2024, a nova explosion. Here we go. This is what's coming up. A nova explosion in the star system called T Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown, or the TCRB, will once again be visible to people on Earth. The TCRB will appear 1,500 times brighter than usual, but it won't be as spectacular as the event in 1054. I don't know why they're playing down the event we got coming now. They're playing it down.
What's the date?
Not as good as 1054, folks. So they're predicting somewhere in September. This new nova. Okay, so let me.
What's the name of this article, please?
Okay, here I'll give you the article. I think it's from PBS. You can just type in like nova, Corona Borealis. Here, let me take a picture of this, and then I want to write some of the new information on the board for us, so we can get some of this up on the board. Okay, let's see. So take a picture here. Like that's still going. Is it okay if I erase what's up there now, or does anyone need to keep? I can leave this up, but does anybody need to keep writing this, or can I erase this? Okay, let me write up some of the information about this T Corona Borealis. Okay, so we have a nova coming up. We have a nova event, so we're a little behind on the Perseids. The meteor shower we may have missed, but we have a major nova star event coming up. It's being predicted by NASA and a lot of other astronomers around the world. And we really need to know what blessing, what bracha can we make on this. And then we're going to see something really incredible if we get to the Zohar today. That the Zohar is predicting a nova event. And that nova event's going to have some major changes in the world. Like Hashem's going to be signaling major changes coming to the world. Okay.
It says over here, crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff. Crazy, yeah. Oh, that's not. Well, I'll explain what's the Zohar and what's my guesses on the Zohar, and so let me write this on the board here. So what we're expecting now. So sometimes NASA, a lot of astronomers are predicting so it's going to be September of 2024, really close, that they're in the constellation. I'm going to show you guys where it is. In the constellation of what's called the T Corona. It's so funny, right? We thought we were done
Corona,
with
yeah.
we thought we were done with Corona, right? Nope. Corona's back, baby. The Northern Crown. It's interesting that it means the Northern Crown, like fascinating stuff.
We'll be able to see that from here?
And we should be able to see it. It's going to be visible to most of the world. The scientific jargon is the TCRB. Okay, so let me go a little. So this is going to be a nova star. Nova star event. Okay, so let's go a little further. Let's see how we're doing on time. So we want to get to the Zohar today. Okay, so we'll keep going with the scientists for a little bit. So they're predicting. They're saying. He says, I am a space scientist with a passion for teaching physics and astronomy. I love photographing the night sky and astronomical events, including eclipses, meteor showers. Meteor showers are Zikim, and once-in-a-lifetime astronomical events such as the TCRB nova. TCRB will become at best the 50th brightest star in the night sky. They're really downplaying this. Brighter than only half the stars in the Big Dipper. And it's near the Big Dipper, so I'll show you. It should be easy to find. It might take some effort to find, but if you have the time, you'll witness a rare event. So we're going soon what a nova is. Let me just show you a little bit of where it's going to be. So if you guys want to look out for it, and we can go through this more. Let me see if I can find my star map real quick. So here we go. I'm breaking out my astronomy book from college. And the astronomy professor would be really, really proud because I did not do too well in his class. It was way too hard for him to left it, but it was really interesting. If I could go back, I would take this class again with the astronomer.
How long ago was that?
Oh gosh, that was like 1980s. So let's see. So it's 7 stars. It's very interesting. So here's the nighttime sky. So eastern horizon. So what's easy usually to find? The Big Dipper is one of the easier constellations to find in the sky. And what's really helpful for us is it's near. So this thing called the Bootis is near. You see, it's like the tail of the Big Dipper. So if you find the Big Dipper, you go to the tail of the Big Dipper. It's going to be very easy to find the Bootis. And then in between Hercules and the Bootis is what we're looking for, the Corona Borealis. It's in the northern crown, 7 stars. So what's going to appear in it is an 8th star. So we're going to talk about all the significance of all that. All right, so what's a nova? So let's go a little into the science here. And let's see, what is a nova? What's a nova event? And then our big question is going to be this. Is a nova a Zikim? What the mission is calling a Zikim, is a nova a Zikim? Because we got to see, because we got something very different happening here. We have meteor showers. That's Rashi's saying that's definitely Zikim. We have a comet. Rambam saying that's definitely a Zikim. You can make a Bracha on that. But what's a nova? And then the question is going to be: is this a Zikim? If it's not a Zikim, it's definitely a big celestial event. Can we make a Bracha on it? And what Bracha will we make? So let's learn a little bit more about what's a nova. So in 1572, the famous Danish astronomer Tycho Brahe, I never know how to pronounce his name, Tycho Brahe, he observed a new star in the constellation Cassiopeia. After reporting the event in his book, De Nova Stella. De Nella Stova means on the new star. Nova means new. I think it's Latin for new. Stella, Stella star. On the new star, astronomers came to associate the word nova with stellar explosions. So stars, regardless of size, spend 90% of their lives fusing hydrogen into helium in their cores. So how a star's life ends, though, depends on the mass of the star. Very massive stars, those more than 8 times the mass of our sun, they explode in dramatic supernova explosions, like the one people observed in 10,054 and 1572. Now, what's the difference between a nova and a supernova? Okay, a nova, what we're going to, Bezrat Hashem, get to experience is a nova. A nova is kind of like, let's say, let's pretend like the star, the sun, is a big light bulb, and like the light bulb's turned off, right? The light bulb's turned off, and then we're going to see like what's happening now in the Corona Borealis is there's a white dwarf star, and there's a red giant star. So the red giant star is much more, the scientists think the red giant is much more massive than our sun. And they think the white dwarf star, which is very interesting, it has the mass of our sun, right? So it has the mass, has the density, has all the the atoms, the density of our sun, but then contracted into around the size of the Earth. So it's super dense. So right, novas are super dense. They think supernovas is when they're even bigger than our, bigger than ours, right? And then it contracts more and more and more, and then when the pressure, when that thing ignites in these thermonuclear explosions, a supernova is when it just explodes. The star explodes. It's gone forever now. The star explodes. What we see in a nova is like the star kind of turns back on. Like the thermonuclear reactions turn back on, the star lights up again, and then it shines for a certain amount of days. And then, if we want to go really crazy, right, then it's like when we go down to a neutron star, we have something big, massive, mass of the sun, bigger than the sun. It goes all the way down, much more smaller than the Earth, like a little neutron star. And then we get into the weird thing where they think that's the creation of black holes, where then it can actually start to suck in, the light, and then, okay. But we're not going to go into black holes right now. But okay, so what we're looking for is a nova, yeah.
So, sir, even though it's novel for us,
Yeah.
it already occurred millions of years ago, correct?
Right, well, okay, so then the whole millions of years versus thousands of years.
contemporaneous.
What?
It's not contemporaneous with us.
What are we saying?
So when this event occurs on the 24th, this already happened. It's just that light is reaching us.
Oh, okay, so that's interesting, right? So if you want to get into that, right, these things are a vast amount of light years away,
Right.
and Hashem has it arranged that the light, right, from this event is reaching us now. But from what we're talking about, like when we start talking about the influence of mazals, on the month, or the day the person's born, or events like this, no matter how far away they are, when they start to affect us is when the actual light reaches us.
Oh.
So Hashem has it, so however distance Hashem has it placed, whenever, theoretically in time, like Hashem has, what's happening at the star happening. From our perspective though, what's going to be important is when the light from this star reaches us. And Hashem has it done, said on that. But you're right, like technically, these things are vast distances.
So we're making a bracha on something that happened millions of years ago.
Right, so that's interesting, right? So, but that's going to be one of our questions.
Yeah.
Right? We're not sure yet we can make a bracha on this. This is not quite what the Zikin are being called, right? A Zikin is a star, according to Rashi, that's like descending in the sky like an arrow, a meteor shower, right? And scientists really think meteor showers are kind of like little pieces of, elements, kind of stuff, and then it kind of burns up like in the atmosphere. So that's not technically, we call it like a meteor shower or shooting stars. They're not maybe technically stars. But the comet, the scientists think, right, it's like, once again, a massive material. They think it's like a lot of like crystalline, like ice structures. And they think like when it passes close to like a sun or a star, like the heat, it lights up. And then you have this burning tail, this burning tail. Right? So these are scientific theories. And we're also going to go back into ideas of this. Scientific theories versus also spiritual meanings. Like, because we're going to see, like with the Zikim, especially with earthquakes. Earthquakes, we're going to get into comparing the scientific theory of earthquakes to what the Gemara is saying is the spiritual meaning of an earthquake. Because once again, we talked about it with like hurricanes a little bit. Like hurricanes are just, they're just treating them as random events. An earthquake is just a random event. These are all random events. The Gemara is saying things very different. Like we just had the solar eclipse like last year, right? So people say, it's amazing. Everyone has to rush and go see the totality, and it was a rare event in America, to have a total eclipse. It was very cool. But the Gemara is saying something very different. The Gemara is saying Hashem's not so happy. Like Hashem, the king, is telling the servant to take the lantern out of the feast room, out of the banquet. So like the Gemara is telling us something very different about a solar eclipse. And by the way, we don't make a bracha on the solar eclipse. We don't make the bracha of Osa Maisa Bereshis because it's a thing of din, right? It's a din. It's like din and judgment. And Hashem's like the Gemara says specifically with the solar eclipse, Hashem's not happy. Hashem's angry. Now this, we don't have that. We don't have in the Gemara with a nova. You know, as far as I know, I don't know anywhere where it's saying that this is an aspect of din, of judgment. You know, but there's going to be different meaning of why Hashem is showing us. But it could be an aspect of din, which we'll talk about from the Zohar. It could be great din. So I don't want to rush it. That may not be totally true. It could be the most massive din on Edom and Ishmael. Okay, so what's a nova? Okay, so let's get a little bit into what's a nova. So Tycho Brahe, like he discovered this. So what he's saying is this is what the scientists say. In lower mass stars, like including our sun, once the hydrogen in the core is exhausted, the star expands into what astronomers call a red giant. The red giant is hundreds of times its original size and more unstable. Eventually, all that's left is a white dwarf. Now, what they think that's happening in the Corona, Borealis right now is that there is a red giant there, and there's a white dwarf, and the hydrogen is coming from the red giant into the white dwarf. So I'm just going to say from our symbolism, what's very fascinating about it is who's the red giant right now? Edom, the power of Rome, the great Roman Empire, the great power of America and Russia, the red giant. And what's happening is the red giant is giving its fuel to the white dwarf. Who's the white dwarf? Who's the Zeir? Who's the little one? Yaakov, Jacob, like the Jewish people. And the Jewish people are absorbing, it's the symbolism that Hashem's showing us. The Jewish people are absorbing the nuclear fuel from the red giant, and then the white dwarf is going to light up. And it's going to light up. And we'll go into the Zohar really soon. I don't want to run out of time for the Zohar. But it says eventually all left is a white dwarf, an Earth-sized remnant made up of carbon and oxygen. White dwarfs are 100,000 times denser than diamond. And unlike unless they're part of a binary star system where two stars orbit each other, they slowly fade in brightness over billions of years and eventually disappear from sight. But, as I just said, this is a binary star system. Not only is it a binary star system, the Corona Borealis has 7 stars, in this constellation, and then the scientists believe that there's a red giant and a white dwarf in this system, right? So matter from the accretion disk, which is made mostly of hydrogen, spirals in and slowly accumulates on the surface of the white dwarf. Over time, this blanket of hydrogen becomes thicker and denser until its temperature exceeds 18 million degrees Fahrenheit, 10 million degrees Celsius. A nova is a runaway thermonuclear reaction similar to the detonation of a hydrogen bomb. Once the accretion disk gets hot enough, a nova occurs where the hydrogen ignites and gets blown outward and emits bright light. Astronomers know of 10 recurrent nova, stars that have undergone nova explosions more than once. The TCRB, the T Corona Borealis, is one of the most famous of these. It erupts on average every 80 years. Because, here's what you're saying, because TCRB is 2,630 light years from Earth, it takes 2,630 years to travel the distance from the TCRB to Earth. The nova we will see later this year occurred over 2,000 years ago. Whoa. But its light will just be reaching us later this year. So events that were going around 2,000 years ago, the light is now reaching us. What events, and we're about to go to Zohar, what event happened almost 2,000 years ago? The destruction of the Beis HaMikdash was one event that was almost 2,000 years ago, right? Events in the ancient Roman world, the ancient Greek world, right? And now the light from those events is just reaching us. Very interesting, right? Very interesting. So let's go.
What was the name of that article again?
So this, I think this is on pbs.com. If you just type in, I can even give you this if you want. If you just type in Nova Corona Borealis, this article was 3 days ago. It should pop up. It should pop up. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the Zohar. Yeah, what's your question?
My question is the second paragraph.
Okay.
Can you help us understand that?
Okay, so let's try to go through this. Okay. So there's a very famous pasuk in the prophecy given to Bilam, right? We're going to go back to Parsha Balak. And Bilam said, he said, Enu v'lo ata. He said there's going to be a star that's going to shoot from Yaakov. It's referring to Mashiach. There's going to be a star that's going to shoot out from Yaakov. But he said, Enu v'lo ata. Now, Bilam said this thousands and thousands of years ago, almost like 3,000 some years ago, right? That he had this prophecy. And he's not kidding. Not now. Mashiach did not come in the days of Bilam and Moshe Rabbeinu. It's been thousands of years. But now are we getting close? So then it says, I see it, but not now. So it says, so the Zohar says, I'll read it in English. It says, since some of these words were fulfilled at that time, and some later, while some are left for Mashiach, we learned that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, will build Yerushalayim. He'll build Jerusalem, and He's going to show one fixed star. Now, I am speculating here. I don't know if this nova is the same star that's talking about the Zohar, but it's got a very good possibility that it is, and we'll see. Okay, so it said it's going to flash with 70 starbursts. Now, here's where we get really interesting. What language does the Zohar use for these 70 starbursts? This is the language it uses. It says, days, ayin 70, and what word does it use? Zeking. There we go. There's our word. There's going to be 70 Zeking, 70 shooting stars, 70 stars shooting like arrows that are going to come out of this nova in the Corona Borealis. 70 of these Zeking are going to come out from it. So maybe, just maybe, now we're back to Zeking. So the Zohar is mentioning Zeking. Now here's also fascinating, talking about the symbolism of it all. What are we really talking about here? If we're talking about a red giant, which may symbolize Edom, and then Edom starting to give its hydrogen to the white dwarf, which is Yaakov, the older brother, the younger brother. And then out of this, and then Yaakov, this is symbolizing Yaakov. Yaakov is going to light up. A star is going to shoot from Yaakov. As Bilam prophesies, a star is going to shoot from Yaakov, and it's going to symbolize that maybe the coming Mashiach is Rav Shem. And then what's the 70 Zeking? What's the 70 shooting starbursts that are coming out from this nova? Well, these are now going to be a message for the 70 nations. The 70 nations world. And the whole world is going to be able to see this nova, right? So 70 Zeking. So our word, starbursts. Zeking, and Zohar is using the term Zeking. And he's going to, in the 70 solar flares. And he's going to 70, he says they're going to be like Naharim Minei Be'em Sabus Rekia. And they're going to be 70, these flashing, the 70 Rahitim, the flashing starbursts, and the 70 Zeking, the solar flares, the shooting stars, are going to be seen in the heavens. And it's going to shine for 70 days. So think about that, the symbolism of that. So we'll have to see. Now we saw before that sometimes novas don't last that long. We saw the nova mentioned in the article only lasted for 23 days. So if we're talking about the same nova here, if the Zohar is talking about our nova in the Corona Borealis, it should last for 70 days. It's going to appear on the 6th day of the week, which will be Erev Shabbos, on the 25th of the 6th month. So this would be the 25th of Elul. If we're talking about the same event, then we're going to know that this star should go nova on September 28th, 2024. Now that's my speculation. All the Zohar says is at some point in history, Hashem's going to make a star go nova on the 25th of Elul. It's going to happen Erev Shabbos. But here's where it gets really crazy. When September 28th, and I think I checked this out, when September 28th, 2024, the 25th of Elul, guess what, folks? I'm pretty sure it's Erev Shabbos this year. so this date, the 25th of Elul this year, I believe is Erev Shabbos. So just like the Zohar is saying on the 6th day of the week. This is why I think it's possible we're talking about the same thing. Now, then it's going to last for 70 days. Now, there, I got to work on the calendar a little more. It says it's going to disappear on Shabbos 70 days later. So if I made the calculations correct, that would be the 6th of Kislev. And it'll be on December 2024. The nova will end. Now, here's where it gets really crazy. The Zohar says on the first day, it's going to be seen in the city of Rome. And it's saying that on that day, 3 lofty walls of that city will fall, and a mighty palace will be overthrown. This is my speculation. My speculation is that there's walls in Vatican City. Right? There's walls in Vatican City, and 3 of the walls of Vatican City will fall. Now, why would that be? Well, if you think back to Tisha B'Av, what did the Romans come and do? The Romans came and they destroyed 3 walls of the Beis HaMikdash, 3 walls of the temple, and now we can see Midah Keneged Midah, Hashem's going to destroy their 3 walls. Right? The Beis HaMikdash, the temple for Hashem in Jerusalem, and now where's their temple? Their temple's the Vatican in Rome, right? And now Hashem may take down 3 of their walls. So we'll see. I mean, 25th of Elul, 3 walls come down in Vatican City. Hold on tight. It gets crazier. So then he says, the mighty palace is going to be overthrown, and the ruler of that city will die. So Pope Francis, we'll see. I mean, but I'm guessing, I don't think it's the prime minister we're talking about here. I think we're talking about the spiritual power of Rome. So it'd be the Pope Francis. That may be, we'll see what happens. So the star is going to be visible throughout the whole world. Now this is very crazy. This is very scary. It says, in that time, mighty wars will arise in all quarters of the world. Well, I hate to say it, but we're not so far away from the mighty wars, right? We got Russia and Ukraine. We got Iran, with their proxies fighting Israel.
You got Trump over here.
We got Trump in the mix, Harris in the mix, America's in, everything's in the mix. We got the election coming up. I think about it. We got the election coming up right after all this, right? Crazy stuff. Talk about the October surprise. We may have a September surprise, right? So big world events. We have world. It's not hard to see if the world can slide into World War III, unfortunately, at any time, right? So it says in that time, mighty wars will arise in all quarters of the world, and this is scary. It says Amuna, like trust and faith in Hashem, is not really going to be found. I put will be found, but I think what the Zohar actually says is it says will not be found. It says La yishtekach beinaiku, there will not be found between them sa'us alma. Like I think it says like umeh Menusa, and from Amuna, I think it says it's not going to be a lot. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a lot of Amuna in Hashem in the world right now. But unfortunately, we know that's kind of where we're at. Like the
certain powerful king.
Yeah.
Will rise.
Yeah. So then, right. So then it says, the star is going to be visible throughout the world. In that time, mighty worlds will arise, and Amuna is not going to be found so much among men. When that star shines in the middle of the Rikiah. This is interesting. A certain powerful king will arise who will seek domination over all other kings and make war on 2 sides and prevail against them. I don't know. It could be like Putin it's talking about. It could be
Trump.
I don't know how it would be Trump, because it would be for the election. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
December 12th.
December 12th. November
4th.
November 4th. So I think if we're correct, the Zohar's not giving Harris a lot of chance here. Kamala, poor Kamala. It doesn't say queen. It says king, right? So it says king. So
right before the.
Make America great again, right? The power of America. Okay, so
this is crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff, isn't it? Right, so on the day when the star disappears, the Holy Land will be shaken. An earthquake. That's going to go over an area over 40 mil. So they're saying here about 45 miles all around the place where the Beis HaMikdash used to be. So that's going to be on the Temple Mount. And think about it, a mighty earthquake on the Temple Mount. And my prediction is that would knock down the Dome of the Rock and the Al Askamas. I want you to consider this for a second. I want you to consider, if we see this major nova event, if it really happens, on the 25th of Elul, if this happens, and we see walls in Rome fall and the Pope dies, Hashem signaling to Edom, your time's up. And then 70 days later, think about it, and that's after our election, you're right, after our election, all the craziness, whatever's going to happen, after our election here, and then great wars are going to break out 70 days later. Think about this. If there's an earthquake on the Temple Mount, and Hashem knocks down the Al Askamas, and knocks down the Dome of the Rock, Now Hashem's also signaling to Yishmael, your time having control over the Har Habayis is over. It's crazy stuff, right? Crazy stuff. Okay, so then a cave will be laid open from beneath the ground, from which will issue a mighty fire to consume the world. From that cave will spread a great and noble branch, which will rule over the world, and to which will be given the kingship, and the heavenly Siddiqim will gather to it. Then Melech Mashiach, King Mashiach, will appear, and the kingship will be given to him. Mankind will then suffer one tragedy after another, and the enemies of Israel will prevail, but the spirit of Mashiach will rise against them and destroy the sinful Edom, and burn in fire the land of Seir. So it is written, and Edom will be a possession, Seir will be a possession of his which were his enemies, while Yisrael does bravely. And in that time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, will raise the dead of His people, Techias Amesim, very crazy stuff, and death will be forgotten of them. Rebbe Abba, he said, why is it written, for in joy you will go out? It says in Yeshaya 35:12, Isaiah 35:12, in happiness, in Simcha you will go out, because when Israel goes out from captivity, the Shekinah will go out with them, and they with her. Incredible stuff, guys. Incredible stuff.
How long ago was this written?
Right, so the Zohar was written down.
It's actually the Zohar?
Right, so this is Zohar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's written down in the 2nd century. Now it was published by Rabbi Moshe de Leon in 1290. But the Nevuah, the prophecy that this is talking about, the prophecy of Bilam, that a star will shoot out from Yaakov, right? A star will shoot out. So here's what's crazy. This is so crazy. I don't know. Maybe we're about to see amazing stuff. We'll see what happens. But in the 25th Elul, if we see this nova and we see major stuff happen in Rome, then we're expecting big stuff to happen in the world. Right, you're saying that in between that time and 70 days later is the election here. And according to this, if we're reading it correctly, and it's really the same star that we're talking about, it does seem like it's going to be Donald Trump. And who's going to fight great wars? It doesn't seem like it'll be Kamala Harris. We'll be fighting the great wars in the world. But look, unfortunately, it's not hard to see. Unfortunately, with Russia and Ukraine, and with Israel versus Iran, it's not hard to see that the whole, everything could go up, into like a major world, major world war.
Zohar predicted it in 2024?
But I'm saying it's even greater than that, because Bilam was given the prophecy, like 3,000 years ago or so, right? When was he see it?
2024?
What?
To 2024?
What?
No, I'm saying this was predicted 3,000 years ago that this would happen in 2024.
Okay, but let me be clear though. Let me be clear.